Jim Bridger will one day be the most famous of all the mountain men on America's wild frontier. He's a highly respected guide, trapper, and teller of tall tales. But in his very first year in the wilderness, he faces a life or death crisis that would test even the most experienced frontiersman.
This way, follow me.
A brutal attack by a grizzly bear has left a veteran fellow trapper, Hugh Glass, clinging to life.
Oh, hey, Hugh. Easy. Hey, cut up some of that canvas. We need to top these wounds.
Now, Hugh Glass's best and perhaps only hope for survival is Jim Bridger.
That's it. Easy now. Easy now.
He's a goner, Jim.
Soon, Bridger will face an excruciating decision. Abandon Hugh Glass to his fate or risk his own life by trying to save him.
If he survives the night, he just might pull through.
You mean if we all survive the night? Right, Jim?
In the heyday of the American fur trade, mountain men meet every summer at the Trappers' Rendezvous, the frontier's business and social event of the year.
That's Jim Bridger.
And by 1837, the self-proclaimed king of the mountain men, Jim Bridger, has little left to prove to his fellow frontiersmen.
Okay.
Bridger was a big deal and a well-thought-of man.
He had this great sense of humor. He was known for telling amazing tall tales.
I run into a canyon. No way out. Crow Braves right behind me.
Well, what happened, Jim?
They killed me.
All right.
But every legend has a dark side, and there are some tales even Jim Bridger is reluctant to tell.
Y'all tell some good tales, Jim Bridger. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's hear another one. Like how you left Hugh Glass to die by himself.
No.
Seems like you heard that one already.
I heard versions of it, but not the true one, I reckon.
I guess you think you know the right and wrong of it, too. But I'll wager you don't. Not by a mile. So, yeah, I'll tell you how I left Hugh Glass to die. And you can tell me if I was right or not.
The events that lead Jim Bridger to his fateful encounter with Hugh Glass begin in St. Louis, the gateway to America's vast western frontier. Here, following the deaths of his parents, young Jim Bridger works as a blacksmith. But a life of toil over a furnace holds little appeal for the ambitious young man.
Good day, Jim. Morning. I got your knife right here.
That was mighty fine work, Jim. How much?
That'll be 10 bits.
Being in St. Louis, he can't help but see traders and trappers who are walking the streets.
He sees these guys coming and going, and the chance to go out and really make some money on a big scale is there, and it's there for the taking if you're tough enough and smart enough to work as a trapper and do the things they did.
But fate intervenes in the spring of 1822 when two frontier entrepreneurs, William Ashley and Andrew Henry, plan a bold trapping expedition on the upper Missouri River.
And so the two of them hook up and form the Henry Ashley Company. And they advertise for 100 enterprising young men and head up the river to hopefully make some money to further their careers.
For Bridger, it's the opportunity he's been looking for, and it's one that will change the course of his life forever. In the summer of 1823, Bridger finds himself on the banks of the Missouri, stepping off into America's untamed frontier.
Don't forget the coffee.
Seth, we got to get that other canoe bailed out.
Bridger! Sir? Keep a keg of 2 beads atop the flour. Your chance on Indians who want to trade along the river. You don't want to dig through the whole kit to get at them.
Yes, sir.
After a 1,500-mile journey up the Missouri River, Ashley's expedition establishes a trapping camp they call Fort Henry. And one of the men at Fort Henry is already a legendary figure on the frontier.
Hugh Glass was oftentimes called Old Glass because he was already in his 40s. He had experienced being a sailor, being a pirate, living with the Pawnee, and it's before he gets into the Rocky Mountain fur trade.
Now, if it comes to us in the scrap with the Indians, mind you don't shoot same time as I do. You know the reason why not?
Well, indeed I do, Hugh.
I don't, Hugh. Why is that?
Well, Indians won't close to our distance while one of us is primed. So the rule is, one man shoots while the other charges his piece.
Suppose if one of us misfires, or both, well then.
Well, lad, then you grab your rifle by the barrel and you brain 1 or 2 of them, and the rest will stop fighting. Unless they don't, best not to misfire in the first place.
Bridger!
Hey, Jim. Keep that powder dry.
Yes, sir.
One of the many men to whom Bridger needs to prove himself is a fellow trapper named John Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald's character was well known around the men in the fort. Hard to get along with, not a terribly likable guy.
You ever plug a tobacco, Jim?
Yeah. Just the one. I was saving it.
Don't be mean with it, lad.
Bridger soon learns that he has a gift. He was able to recall details of the land with remarkable accuracy.
Bridger could map the country in his mind such that once he'd been there, he could get back with no trouble. He never got lost.
Jim! Do you hear me? Jim!
Why, John! I thought you were right behind me. You get turned around?
Stop for a drink of water, you wandered off.
Yeah. Stay with me now, you hear?
No, John. Camp Southwest.
I know where the camp is.
It's because of skills like that, but also his willingness to learn, that begins to earn him the respect of some of his more seasoned peers.
But even as Bridger gains esteem among his fellow trappers, he inspires resentment as well.
Well, well. Fitzgerald, will you be the last man back every day?
Nah, this little greenhorn Bridger led me astray.
Jim's got as fine a head for fine his way as anyone I've ever met.
Yeah. And why is it me leading this greenhorn home?
Take a step back, man.
Give me that.
During their first year on the Yellowstone, Bridger's brigade harvests nearly $8,000 worth of beaver pelts, a little more than $220,000 today.
The Ashley Henry enterprise is initially successful, but eventually they need to look for new areas to trap and trade. And so Ashley leads a small group of men on a trade mission to make contact with the Arikara Indians.
Eager for adventure and experience, Bridger hopes to accompany Ashley on the dangerous journey.
How's the loading coming?
Canoes are loaded and the men are anxious.
Mr. Ashley, sir, if you have room for one more, I'd very much like to see the Arikara village with you.
I'm afraid not, Jim. It's 200 miles each way, and the Arikara are unpredictable at best. I can only take seasoned men on this trip. Jim, you'll have your chance. See you in less than a month.
The introduction of the European and American fur trade disrupts a balance that had been established over many years. In a sense, the Arikara are cut out of many of the trading relationships they previously had, where they functioned as a kind of middleman. And so Ashley is heading into a situation where he isn't quite sure what's going to happen.
But Ashley, who doesn't speak the Arikara language, fails to recognize subtle signs of danger when he arrives to trade.
I want to trade you possession horses.
The Arikaras are friendly at first, but on the frontier, things can change in the blink of an eye. And the following morning, it becomes dangerously clear.
Arikara! Over there!
This is one trip Jim Bridger is lucky to have missed. After a peaceful trading session at an Arikara village turns hostile, William Ashley and his trapping expedition suddenly find themselves under attack.
When Ashley gets there, the trading goes fairly well at first, but during the night, a couple of the guys sneak into the Arikara village to rendezvous with a couple of the women there. And that doesn't go well, and by dawn, battle is started.
Outnumbered and taken by surprise, several of Ashley's men have been killed or wounded, and the rest prepare for another attack.
How many missing, Captain? I count 10. God willing, others will turn up here if they escape through the forest.
With the Arikara on the warpath, Ashley needs reinforcements if he hopes to survive. Luckily, Ashley has the perfect man to send for help. The legendary frontiersman, Jedediah Smith.
Listen, Jed, I need you to get word to Fort Henry. Get word about this attack and my urgency need for aid. Gather up all food and powder that you can, and go now.
I'm coming with you.
I set your trap, Glass.
Smith treks more than 100 miles to Fort Henry, where he rallies reinforcements for Ashley's weakened brigade. Word of the Arikara attack also reaches Fort Atkinson, where U.S. troops commanded by Colonel Henry Leavenworth are stationed. Leavenworth immediately sets out with a mixed force of infantry and allied Lakota warriors, eager to punish the Arikaras. Anxious to help his friends in need, Bridger joins the relief column from Fort Henry. And though he signed up as a trapper, Bridger is prepared to be a frontier soldier if needed.
The expectation was not that all you have to do is trap. If we get attacked, you've got to help defend.
Mr. Ashley.
You are a sight for sore eyes, Mr. Henry. You made good time.
We left Fort Henry same day Smith arrived. I'm told you were roughly handled.
Yes, but we'll fight those rascals who attacked us. Colonel Leavenworth, he's already marched on. So if you hurry and leave soon, you may be able to catch him.
Our men need only fill canteens, and we can depart at once.
Good to see you. Good. I welcome the chance to lift a scalp or two.
Right up on the ridge over here.
But by the time Henry's men arrive at the Arikara village, they're too late to help avenge the attack.
This is a Sioux arrow, Mr. Henry. Colonel Leavenworth's got Sioux with him. Seems they beat us here.
U.S. Army itself burned the village, and basically the Arikara snuck out of their village under the cover of darkness.
All right. Spread out and search the area. We may catch them yet.
After the battle, they tried to figure out, what do we do from here? And they decide that it's too risky to go back upriver because they don't know where the Arikara are. So they decide they're going to go overland, and they break into two groups, one led by Andrew Henry.
As Leavenworth's troops return to Fort Atkinson, Henry's column, including Jim Bridger, Hugh Glass, and John Fitzgerald, begins the arduous trek back to Fort Henry.
Bridger. Thought I heard something.
But Bridger has a good reason to be on edge, because what began as a successful trapping expedition has become a grim fight for survival. After a trading mission to a village of the Arikara tribe turns deadly, Andrew Henry leads his brigade back to their camp on the Yellowstone River.
At this point, they're on high alert. They've already been attacked once by the Arikara, and an attack could come again at any moment.
But now, a new problem arises. The trappers are running out of food and are far from any source of supplies.
As much as the group is trying to move as quickly and quietly as possible, you still got men who need to eat.
Anyone have more than a day's beef? We shall have to hunt. We'll go in small groups. Go quietly. Take no shot that isn't sure to hit. Be back by dark.
Where's Hugh?
Going his own way as usual.
Bridger! You want to get scalped, huh?
That was basically Hugh Glass's job. He was a hunter. and so he was supposed to supply him with meat.
He didn't like to be told what to do. He did like to be out on his own and depend on himself.
As a veteran frontiersman, Hugh Glass prefers to hunt alone. But even an experienced hunter can be taken by surprise. And hostile Arikara warriors aren't the only predators on the frontier.
This way, follow me. Hugh!
It's immediately obvious that Glass has been attacked by a grizzly bear, one of the most dangerous animals on the continent.
Grizzlies in that whole Rocky Mountain area were very common, not like today. At that point in time, they were everywhere.
It's just in a grizzly's DNA that when a threat is within a certain proximity, there's a very good chance that he's going to decide to come and neutralize the threat.
That's it. Easy now. Easy now.
Hugh Glass gets pretty well chewed up. She bites his shoulders. She pretty well rips his neck apart. His back is torn to shreds. He was really, really messed up.
Glass's injuries are horrific, but they present new dangers for his exhausted companions as well.
Get sure them good and tight so he don't slip through there.
Let's get out of here, Jim.
All right. Blanket.
Now encumbered by an injured comrade, Bridger and the others face a trek of hundreds of miles, right through the heart of Arikara territory.
And up.
With Hugh Glass on the brink of death, Brigade Leader Andrew Henry decides it's time for his men to face the harsh reality of their situation.
It was pretty unanimous among the Henry group that Glass wouldn't probably live through the night. So here you have Henry. He's in the midst of all this danger. He's faced with the classic leadership decision.
Now hear me, boys. We know the Arikaras won't rest till they take scalps. And there's our pellets, huh? A whole season's worth. We don't get them back on the river, we're all of us busted. That's how it lies. We can't be slowed by carrying a litter.
So leave him alone to die? Is that it?
No, lad, no.
Henry's decision had to be a tough one. He knows he needs to get back to Fort Henry. He knows he needs to get back to trapping, but yet he has one of his key fellows in a desperate situation.
I'll ask us each to pledge a gold dollar for 2 men to stay with you. Here's mine as the first.
So he came up with a compromise. Let's ask for 2 volunteers to stay here with old Glass until he dies and take care of him until then.
I'll stay with you.
Bridger volunteered because he was a young man and he wanted to show that he was not afraid to step up and meet a tough situation when needed.
But Bridger is surprised by the second man who volunteers to stay behind.
Well, this pup can take it. I reckon I can too.
Fitzgerald figured that's the easiest money he was going to make hanging around there, even if it was just him and the young fella. Nobody had the concept there that Glass is going to live that long.
See you at Fort Henry.
As the trappers depart, Bridger and Fitzgerald begin their lonely and dangerous vigil.
I'll get some water. Hugh? Gone already?
As far as I know, we ain't staying here 1 minute longer than we need to. Hey, lend me a hand, will you?
They said we'd wait. So we're gonna wait.
What else can I do? Wait.
After 3 long days, Glass still clings to life, but shows no sign of possibly recovering.
Well, 3 days gone, and old Hugh's still amongst the living. Barely. Look at him sweat. Those are the death sweats, boy.
It's your turn to get wood.
And Fitzgerald soon makes a discovery that makes their dire situation even worse.
Both Bridger and Fitzgerald are constantly on their guard. Not just Arikara, but you've got a number of other tribes that are roaming, hunting throughout that area.
Jim, we gotta make tracks. There's an Arikara party not a mile from here.
Let's get moving. Help me carry this litter.
Are you mad? Them Arikaras will be on us any minute.
You saying that we leave him?
What I'm saying is he good as dead already. If we want to save our scalps, we gotta go. And I mean now. Hey, you coming or not? Because either way, I'm gonna save my skin.
Not that way. Okay, there's a river that bends west in about a mile. We'll follow it.
Well, come on then.
Forgive me, Hugh. Forgive me.
Bridger's uncanny sense of direction leads them safely back to Fort Henry, where Bridger believes a reckoning awaits him.
You go on ahead. I'm gonna check on Hugh.
He's dead. And we buried him proper like we said. But you hear me, boy? Get in there. Go.
But even though Bridger reluctantly agrees to tell the trappers that Glass is dead, both he and Fitzgerald have underestimated just how tough the legendary trapper really is. After abandoning fellow frontiersman Hugh Glass, Jim Bridger tries to move on, but he's still haunted by his decision.
It's hard to imagine what might have gone through Bridger's mind, knowing or not knowing what happened to Glass, presuming that Glass probably died. You gotta imagine that this young kid is somewhat haunted by the idea of having left his friend and not knowing if he, was eaten by bears or attacked by Indians, or his body just laying out there for the wind and the wolves.
And though he doesn't know it yet, Bridger's deepest fear has come to pass. Against all odds, Hugh Glass is still alive. But now, unarmed and alone, his battle for survival is just beginning.
His desire to live was to punish others. And revenge is a huge motivator to get through the situation you're at.
I mean, like, talk about something to make you get up in the morning, is knowing that you so badly want to catch and confront the people who left you for dead.
With nothing but a makeshift crutch and the clothes on his back, Glass begins a torturous trek to Fort Kiowa, nearly 300 miles to the southeast.
He's got broken bones. It takes him a day to go 100 yards.
But he's got hundreds of miles he's going to need to travel. If he can recover from his injuries and blood loss and infections.
He comes across a buffalo kill where a pack of wolves have taken down a buffalo, and he gets some meat there, even though it's a little on the rancid side. Meat's meat.
With hundreds of miles still ahead of him, Glass takes a much-needed rest from his harrowing journey. Only to discover he's no longer alone. Bridger still has no idea that Hugh Glass is alive, but he's tormented by guilt and anger at the man who convinced him to leave Glass behind.
Bridger and Fitzgerald don't part company for a significant period of time, so you can imagine the tension between them. You can imagine the guilt that Bridger is feeling at that moment, but you can also imagine Fitzgerald's worry, even terror, at being found out in his deception.
Bridger believes that Hugh Glass is long dead, but much to his own surprise, Glass has found unlikely allies in the wilderness.
When he hit the Missouri, he ran into a group of friendly Lakota Indians, and they recognized that he had undergone quite a severe encounter with a grizzly bear. And I think that created a certain amount of respect amongst them. Even helped him patch up the wound in the back that he couldn't reach or anything.
Thank you. Palamia.
With the help of the friendly Lakota, Glass continues what becomes a 38-day trek back to civilization.
It's as mythological as any stories that come down from the Greeks or the Spartans. The soul of that man and how he survived it is beyond all comprehension.
And throughout the excruciating journey, Glass is motivated by one thing: revenge. After all they've endured over the past year, Henry's men are ready to unwind and anticipate a successful trapping season next spring.
Gentlemen, a toast. Here's for a profitable season on the Upper Missouri and a safe return to St. Louis by the fall. Gentlemen, a moment. And here's for God's blessing. For poor Hugh Glass. May you rest in peace.
When you do something that you know is wrong, it always eats at you until you make atonement, until you do something to at least get some sense of forgiveness. And so Bridger is living with this. It had to be miserable.
My God. Hugh, it's a miracle.
You have aught to say, speak. For I will end you now as you thought you did me.
After being left for dead, veteran frontiersman Hugh Glass has made an epic journey to take revenge on the men who abandoned him.
You! You're alive. Not for thanks of this one. And Fitzgerald, who left me to die by the Grand.
Hugh, there'll be no killing in this post. Warranted or no. You said he was dead! But yeah, boy, does he speak the truth? He does!
He does. We thought him knocking on death's door. Sir, I swear, we had a war party on our tracks, so we fled.
Yet he lives. Hugh, I want to hear the truth of this from you.
He had to face what he had done and the man he had done it to. And you either man up or you don't, and he did.
After hearing Glass's incredible tale of survival, Bridger believes that retribution lies close at hand.
I cannot count the times I thought my last hours had come. What kept me alive was thinking how I'd been robbed. And left to die alone by you, Jim Bridger.
I should never have left you, Hugh. I've been haunted by shame every day since. I do not deserve your forgiveness.
Nor do I offer it.
I can envision him standing before his friend Hugh Glass, and maybe tears in his eyes, but knowing that I lay myself at your feet because what I did was wrong. Glass was gonna take revenge on both those guys. But when he gets there and he sees the emotion in Bridger, I think he broke a little too.
You will live with your guilt the rest of your days. But you also have a chance to do right by your comrades when next they need your care. I pray your judgment serves you better when that day comes.
It will. I swear.
I think Glass, being an old frontiersman, said, yeah, you make your mistakes and you learn by them.
Bridger is changed from that point on. His whole character just evolves from that realization that after all I did, Glass forgave me.
Now, tell me where I'll find that scoundrel, John Fitzgerald.
In the fictional version of the story, Glass confronts and gets his revenge against Fitzgerald in dramatic fashion. But in real life, then as now, people don't always get what's coming to them. In most accounts, Fitzgerald joins the US Army and then disappears from history. And Glass doesn't get his revenge.
And even though Fitzgerald escapes the frontier justice he deserves, Jim Bridger's life is never the same.
Hugh Glass did more than let me live. He taught me the rule in which I've lived the rest of my life. And that's not just living as a mountain man, but a man who speaks the truth. A man who never, ever leaves a friend in need. And you greenhorns, be good to heed that lesson, lest you learn it the hard way like I did.
Fairly told, Jim. Tell me one more thing. You ever see Hugh Glass again?
Indeed, I did.
So? What happened?
He killed me.
To say that this was a formative experience in the life of Jim Bridger would be an understatement. In Glass, not only in the model he sets initially, his arduous journey back to civilization, and then his forgiveness presents Bridger with a model that he aspires to emulate for most of his life.
He becomes one of the finest men. Everybody talked about how incredible Bridger was to have at your side. He's learned to survive. He's learned to get along.
Step up and do what's right when it's time. That's the Bridger story right there.
It became part of his life's experience. It's a tough way to learn it, but what a magnificent gift to have it that early and that young.